big part of my mission as an astrologer to make sure that we avoid astrological sensationalism just to drive up numbers in both the way that we advertise and promote and actually deliver the content. So if you value that, if that's something that is a part of what you like about this channel, please consider supporting us. We'd really appreciate that support. Okay, well, on that note, let's take a look at the real-time clock and at our transit of the day, which is Mercury's opposition to Jupiter. All right, so here it is. We can see here that the direct motion, I thought I'd bring this up first. Mercury in its direct motion opposed Jupiter between Sunday, November 17th, and Monday, November 18th. So that was a little bit ago. We're coming around to this again through retrogradation. And here we can see at the middle of the week, we have today is Wednesday, December 4th. Let me shift my little view here. And here you can see that this is 9 a.m., right? So we could have done yesterday into today and see that the opposition is very much in the air right now. We're going to be looking at Mercury's cazimi tomorrow, so this is very much a part of the astrology of the week for the rest of this week, because the Sun will also oppose Jupiter right after the Mercury cazimi. So an interconnected series of events that really highlight the Mercury-Jupiter opposition throughout the entire week. So this opposition is interesting because Mercury is now coming back to the opposition. It's like, hey, let's revisit that moment that we just had earlier. This is, of course, a part of the ongoing perfection of the Jupiter-Saturn square that's taking place this month of December as well. So lots going on with this one. Mercury's in Jupiter's sign, which means it's in its exile, a natural opposite to Jupiter is Mercury. And Jupiter's in Mercury's sign, a natural opposite to its own home sign, which puts them both in what we call their exile. That doesn't mean anything bad. We're not judging the planets. The planets are all divine, and all their placements are divine. But they do have tense and more relaxed relationships with one another. Mercury and Jupiter are considered a kind of opposite. So just like in the tango, there's a kind of push and pull between the masculine and feminine in that dance form. All kinds of opposites exist in astrology, and Mercury and Jupiter have been thought of as opposites for thousands of years. And so Mercury's opposition to Jupiter, while in Jupiter's sign, and Jupiter's opposition to Mercury while in Mercury's sign, creates a very interesting conversation, because we're basically amplifying the natural tension between Mercury and Jupiter, but we're also suggesting that they have the power to work together by virtue of being in each other's signs. That's called mutual reception. Mutual reception by detriment and through an opposition would be something like enemies who are being forced to work together on something that they dislike more than each other. I've used that kind of example a few times, but another way of looking at it would be that people who have some kind of oppositional tension are able to work together and seek some kind of compromise. There might be some reluctance in moving toward resolution or agreement because of the oppositional tension here, but nonetheless, there is some willingness to work together that is really remarkable about this transit and suggests some kind of revision of our thoughts and of our paradigm that is taking place. That there is some new way of thinking or understanding or perceiving that could involve compromise, and that is part of a larger paradigmatic change that the compromise is somehow inciting or enacting or kind of pushing along, is suggested by the fact that Jupiter, coming off from this, is going right into the square with Saturn. Mercury will station and then engage with the same thing all over again as Jupiter squares Saturn. So I want to talk today, given this very interesting dynamic, when we've already visited this, but I have some new ways of spinning the jewel, right? That's always the goal. So 5 things to watch for. Number 1, something bad is actually something good. I didn't know how else to put this, because most of us probably don't go around going, this is good and this is bad. Like, I think probably people listening to this channel, you're very nuanced, thoughtful. You don't think too much in terms of black and white and so forth. But there is also just a subjective kind of consensus reality in which we say this feels good, this feels bad, that looks good, that looks bad. So when you have 2 planets opposing one another in mutual reception by exile, one of the things that comes to my mind is that something that on the surface initially looked bad or difficult is now being recognized as potentially beneficial. And that feels like a way of symbolically encapsulating the exchange of dignity that's at play. So I think a really hopeful and interesting way of looking at this right now that you may notice in your life, and remember, I take some of these from my own life and things that are happening to me within or in different facets of my life where I see the transits at work. So some of this is my own self-reflection. I'll admit that, but it may be applicable to other people, because I found often that when I really notice a manifestation that I'm like, wow, that's an interesting one, I haven't seen that before, that a lot of other people will, there'll be enough people out there that will be experiencing that as one of the possibilities for manifestation, sort of on the list of the on the archetypal spectrum or whatever. Anyway, so something bad is actually something good could mean that something first looks like a problem, but
Why is this
is
letting help
actually a unique
appreciated?
opportunity.
No,
Or something
no
that at
help. What
first
is
looks
this?
like, ooh, I don't
Why?
like that. You go, well, maybe I'm
Why?
open to it. Something like that seems to be
Why,
taking
man?
place. And and that could be taking place in a very specific part of your life. Um, I'm reflecting on this, I'll just be open, with respect to a different, basically like a different structure to my weight training program. And at first I was like, I don't know if I like this compared to my last one. But then progressively, as I've been getting into it, and that was what was happening, I was kind of installing that new program under Mercury opposite Jupiter. And now I'm going, oh, I maybe I do like this. Maybe something that I was closed down to is turning out to be something better than I thought it was. And that shift in understanding within a specific little paradigm is very small. It's not like a big, huge, significant deal, but you may notice something like that. That's something that you were closed down to, you may be open to. Um, even like, I will just say this, I have heard a lot of people saying, with respect to some of the things happening in the larger world right now, that whereas there's, like, for example, a lot of people have very strong feelings about how the election went. Afterward, people may say, you know what, I'm going to even just like, I'm just going to refrain from falling into doomsday thinking or doomsday scenario if you didn't like the result. I have noticed a lot of people, students, friends, people around me, and I'm a little bit more stoic about these things, but people around me saying something like, you know what? I'm just not going to flip out. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to judge on the surface what's happening. I'm just going to wait and see. Even that attitude of like, and that doesn't have to be politically speaking, I'm just saying I've observed that happening in the weeks after the election to a number of people. Like, it's a response I've seen over and over again. And I'm like, that's interesting. That feels like Mercury opposite Jupiter with the mutual reception by detriment and opposition. It's like, I don't like this, but I guess I'll just stay open, and at least I'm not going to devolve into like a hopelessness. And even that is a kind of exchange between Mercury and Jupiter. Like, well, I'm looking at this and I'm going, I don't know if I like this, but I'm going to remain open to what it could be that I can't yet see, or a purpose that it serves that I don't yet understand, or something like that. I think that we do that in a lot of areas of life when something doesn't go the way that we want it to, or we're looking at something and initially having an adverse reaction to it. My little workout program, I don't know about this. Okay, well, you know what? I don't know. I'm just going to stay open and see what happens. Even that is very much like the something bad is actually something good, or I'm going to just not judge this as good or bad and remain open to what it could be that I don't understand, because I'm not the architect of the universe, just that attitude. So anyway, uh, number two would be over talking. I think this is like one of my favorite things. So the other night, as the first direct pass was happening, of course I track these things. I can't help but just notice how they manifest. Ashley and I were talking, and I would say like 90% of the time, my Mars and Gemini, over the years of being married to my beautiful wife who has Mercury and Aries, there's been like, we are both just chatterboxes. She has a YouTube channel, I have YouTube. We've both been teachers our whole adult careers. So we both just love to gab and talk with each other. And usually, because of that Mercury and Aries and Mars and Gemini on my chart, there's a very like just fast, easy back and forth. And I've learned over the years also how to, just really make sure that I'm drawing people out when I'm talking with them. I think doing counseling work has really helped me with that. So that, it's like, I'm always conscious of the fact, it's like, oh, have I been talking too much? Let me stop talking and ask the person that I'm with some questions, draw them out. Like if you're hanging out with friends, most of us are really conscious of that. It's like we all have a little dimmer switch, and we're like, I'm turning things up bright to tell a story or to share something or share my thoughts. And then after a while, you kind of become self-aware of the fact that you've been bright and loud and center. And so you kind of turn your dimmer down and make sure that other dimmer lights go up in the group that you're with. We all have that kind of sensitivity and aware. I think most of us do. But you know what it's like. You know what it's like when you're with someone or you're with a group of people and someone does not have an awareness that their dimmer switch is like all the way up and they don't have the capacity to turn it down. And by the end you're just drained. You know, you're just exhausted. You're like, I mean, come on, man, you know, turn your dimmer switch down. This is a transit that can very easily result in the dimmer switch not being turned down. So this is the funny story. So Ashley and I, under the first direct passage, I caught myself like going off on a complete rant about something in the like larger field of astrology. Some things that I was talking about that kind of drive me nuts about very certain element of pop astrology that kind of drives me nuts. And all of a sudden I realized like Ashley was starting to glaze over. And I'm like, oh shit. I've been ranting for like 5 straight minutes. I need to shut. So I just paused and I was like, I'm sorry. How are you? And she started laughing, you know. It's like, and I thought it was so funny that Mercury was opposite Jupiter, you know. And then I find occasions like that, by the way, to be really good. Like if I catch myself really ranting about something, usually that's a sign for me that I need to sit with that thing that I'm feeling really bothered by, you know. And it's kind of like your soapbox. Like, what are your soapboxes? Mercury, Jupiter could really put you on your soapbox. So make sure that we're aware of the fact that we're on the soapbox. We're aware of our dimmer switch, and also, you know, that if you get swept up in some kind of soapbox, let your soapbox be a place that you can maybe, you know, get into a little humility. You know, it's like if you really get swept up in philosophizing or big ideas or whatever, and you get caught and you realize, oh gosh, you know, I'm really going off here. Sit with it. Let it shift you somehow. Because often, what I've found over the years, for example, you know, I'm notorious for getting on some soapboxes in certain facets of my programs because there's things I get really passionate about. And over the years, those positions have gradually, it's like water wearing down rocks. You know, I get softer, my edges kind of wear down a little bit because every time I catch myself going off on a soapbox about some particular thing that I'm, you know, in the curriculum or whatever, I'll kind of go, yeah, there's a way of expressing that is going to be more mature and like gentle and like you're too irritated, you know, and so I need to make peace with it. But what that does is it often creates more generosity, compassion, sensitivity in my heart when I reflect on the moments where I've got caught up so much that I've become a little zealous. Over the years, you know, my charisma, it's like there's a fine line with those of us who are charismatic about, if that's just a natural part of your temperament, between charisma and like zealousness. And this is a transit that can really help us clarify some of those distinctions and try to soften them so that we're always in the realm of devotion and passion, but not zealousness and, you know, kind of teetering into fanaticism, which again is something that people who have like a lot of air and fire around Mercury or Jupiter in their charts might naturally like, you know, have to deal with. So anyway, just a kind of fun thing to think about. Maybe you'll notice this. Maybe you'll notice it in someone else as well. And remember that sometimes that transit is also like indicative of people who have bottled things up and now they just need to vent, you know, so like venting would be a little natural. So we can give some space for people to maybe just need to talk it out. Anyway, the next one on my list is opening ourselves to the opposite. Here's the thing is that with these two planets, and we talked about this maybe a month ago now, I was talking about Jupiter and Gemini and how two things can be true. And one great way to practice the art of Gemini is when we have a strong idea or a strong claim, not necessarily to make ourselves believe the opposite or something like that, but to simply sit with and consider whatever a natural opposite might be.
Yo, Drew Faith. What's up, Drew Faith? 225 for 50 reps? Yeah, right.
That is an
What's up, man?
exercise,
How are
even
you,
if it
buddy?
doesn't, I don't necessarily shift the perspective I have,
How are you, my
or
friend?
the belief. Still, opening myself up to consider an oppositional perspective is often really helpful, because at the very least it
Oh
can
man,
help me to soften
I don't know. I might up it
and
again.
create more room for like
I'm at
grace and
135
flexibility,
right now, which is
especially
pretty
with other
low.
people. Because if you consider the opposite, a lot of the times
But I
what
was
we're doing
doing
is
like
considering how someone else might
8
feel.
reps, 8 reps.
Great transit for that kind of work.
Might up it.
Number 4 would be a reluctant agreement.
All right, let's do a set.
You know, these two planets,
See how we feel.
they're in each other's signs. They have to work together, but they're opposed. Could there be some way in which two things that don't really look like they should go together are reluctantly agreeing to come together on something? A reluctant convergence of resources, ideas, thoughts, philosophy, a reluctant form of resolution, mediation, agreement. I think we could look for something like that, and I think that might be one of the most unique things that this opposition offers. And number 5, a moment contributing to paradigmatic change. Remember, this opposition and everything it brings up is contributing to the slow, ongoing development of Jupiter and Saturn meeting in the sky, which suggests those deep, deep structural changes that are in the midst of changing right now for us. So, a moment contributing to paradigmatic change. Consider. All right, we'll leave it here for today. I hope you guys are having a great day today and having fun with some of these transits. We will be looking at the Mercury Cazimi, we'll be looking at Venus opposite Pluto, and the upcoming Venus-Mars opposition. Lots of big stuff to cover the rest of the week. Remember, if you haven't yet pitched in, our backer goal is 1,937 backers by January 1st. We're well on our way. Really appreciate everyone who's supported the channel so far. After I sign off,
I feel pretty good doing more reps and then more weight. I don't know. I might up it later.
Comment section, description of this video, or on the website nightlightastrology.com.
What's up, man? Hope you're doing well.
See you again tomorrow. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to tell you about the different rewards that we offer when you donate and support our channel in the year ahead. So you'll find a link to the Kickstarter in the
Hey guys, today we have Matt Bell, who is the largest collector of ancient Egyptian vases, and these vases are out of the world. I'm going to show you this as clear evidence of ancient machining technology. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to be chatting with you today. Yeah, these things are crazy.
Yeah, like what's the deal with them? Can we pick one up? Like, which one is your favorite?
I've got a lot of favorites for different reasons, but this is definitely one of them. So,
How old is this?
that one dates to 3200 BC.
3200 BC. That means this is 5,200 years old.
Correct, yeah.
Am I holding a vase that's 5,200 years old?
Yes, sir.
And it's machined to perfection. This is the part that really goes crazy, because there's no way you can chisel this, right? There's no way you can hand carve this.
Correct.
This is machined to perfection, and you're telling me that this is 5,200 years old.
Yes. Yeah. So there's different. Some people the
Ton of snow on the ground outside. It
hunter-gatherer
sucks.
changed over time, and people changed that to mean something else after we discovered Göbekli Tepe and Test Templar. Well, the definition of handmade is now being changed by people, because now they're including the lathe within what's considered to be handmade. So
lathe-turned things are handmade now?
now they are, according to some people. Yeah. So it was certainly not beaten with a chisel, beaten with a rock, and that's impossible. And people hate when I say that it's impossible to make that with a chisel, but once you see it and feel it and understand the dimensions and the symmetry involved in it, there's no way that could possibly be made with primitive hand tools.
Yes. I mean, the truth is, humans can kind of intuitively tell if something is handmade or machine made. You don't look at a can of Coke and you say that's handmade. You know, we know it's machine made, and I can tell you right away that there's no way this was hand carved, right? What material is this?
That's red granite.
Red granite? And what's the hardness of this?
6.5.
6.5 on most hardness scale? That's pretty hard, right? What kind of tools would they have used to make that? Like you had to carve something, you need something that's at least 6.5 or more to carve on, right? So what material was used?
Yeah, that's a big question. We are looking at them through scanning electron microscopes, SEMs now, to try to figure out what tools were in there cutting it from the inside and from the outside. The traditional explanation is that they were flint chisels, and that they actually attached a rock, probably a flint rock, to a stick, and then just kind of twisted it with your hands on the inside to hollow out the inside. I mean, that's literally the explanation now.
There's no way to do that.
Impossible, absolutely
It
impossible.
would be impossible.
Which once you see and you feel it and you look at it, it's clear that that's impossible. But that's actually still the way that is being explained today for the manufacture of these objects, and it's much more likely that one or that others that are highly precise, down to just a couple of thousandths of an inch of perfect roundness. It's much more likely that they would be somehow have been a modern recreation, a modern forgery, than it would be that could be made with
Hands, yes.
Yeah. And I'm open to all possibilities on every one of these objects. I have archaeologists that have vouched for several of these. The provenance on many of them is just spectacular. That one we have provenance on going back to 1968.
Oh, really?
Yep, it was.
You have certificates?
I do. Yep. That comes with the purchase of every one of them. So.
Oh, really?
Wow. So that was owned by Teddy Kollek, who was the mayor of Jerusalem back in the 1960s and 70s, and so that was in his private collection, and then sold to Mr. Barakat, Mr. Fayez Barakat, who's currently the world's largest private owner of ancient antiquities, period.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a fifth generation business owner of antiquities, and so he personally vouches for that object and many of the others that he's sold me, and he's encouraging me to do this research, and he's not shying away from it at all, so that also gives me confidence that what we're looking at here is true, genuine, ancient, authentic artifacts.
Yeah, let's pick this one up. This one looks, oh, these move around, huh?
Yeah, so this, you can spin this. This will spin for days.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
They made sure they're not flat bottom.
Right. None of them are very flat.
Oh, I see. That's very interesting. What about this one?
That one also spins. Yep.
Oh, these are medicinal pots. Is that what they are?
In terms of the function, it's.
Well, what was inside?
Yeah, right. That's the question. It's if you ask the mainstream, then they'll tell you it was perfumes and herbs and spices or whatever. But nobody really knows what they were used for.
Why do you think they made them without the flat bottoms? Why do you think? Do you think it has a reason?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. But
Do you think that, well, in South India, there's a type of medicine called Siddha medicine, and they always store things in pots that don't have flat bottoms. Okay, because even with the slightest touch, it just moves around. Like, what do you do when you pick up Pepto-Bismol, right? You're gonna shake it first before you drink it, because all the good stuff settles at the bottom, right? So all the medicinal pots, the containers, they were made sure that they did not have flat bottoms, because even with the slightest touch, the contents would get mixed up. This was common practice in some parts of South India, because if people could make a vase like this, they could easily make flat bottom.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Why would they?
Right.
It would be a mistake to think that, they just didn't make them like with flat bottoms by mistake. No, these guys could do such a great job, right? So they made sure that these pots would move. Even if I just put it here, just move around, because they did not want things to settle at the bottom. That was my theory. Because why else would you make it like this?
Right. And it's even the ones that appear like they have flat bottoms. Like this one, it's actually a rounded bottom.
Yeah.
And so it's like these, all
Yeah,
of these
made
will-
sure they're not really flat.
Right, right. They'll spin. I mean,
Yeah.
and these are from different people. You know, this one clearly has a lot of age to it. It's been through some stuff, but yeah, it's 90% of them do you know.
They have to move even with the slightest touch, because
Right.
they needed that for
Yep.
some reason,
Yep.
right?
Yep. For some reason, they lack friction on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the mainstream theory is that they were placed in sand, and so the round bottom somehow helped the sand. But you can make a flat surface very, very easily just by rubbing two surfaces together.
Yes.
But to do this, it takes a lot more work to round off every one of the sides so that it's rounded. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a bit of a there's several mysteries with these things, and that one for me is still not completely understood.
Why is there a lingam? Why?
Right.
Look at this, guys. How old is this?
That one, it's right about that same age. Yeah, about 3400 BC.
Really?
Yeah.
5,400 years ago, right?
Right.
5,400 years?
Right.
It's a crystal lingam, at least that would be my first reaction. But Matt will be like, no, this is a vase.
A vial.
A
They
vial.
call it a vial.
Yeah.
Yep, and it does have the two handles with the
Oh,
two holes.
no, yeah, with the holes.
Yeah.
What could go inside this?
What could have drilled it?
No, what, like,
A rope or a string, I guess.
you could put a string through this?
Very small.
How did they drill a hole like this?
Beats me, man. And why risk breaking off that tiny little piece of material for a tiny little hole? Very,
Yeah.
very dangerous.
5,400 years old, huh?
Yes. Yep. I just checked
Where'd you find it?
that is from an art dealer. That was from Mr. Bearcat as well.
Okay. And where did they originally find it?
See, that's the question. You don't get like a grave site or a dig site on anything that's on the antiquities market. So anything. So what when you buy these, when you find them, and I stopped buying them this year. This is my. I'm pretty sure that this is my final.
You reached your limit?
Yeah, unless
You
something
think you
else.
do.
Well, I feel like I have enough that I can learn about them now and share that information with people out there. There's enough. To go beyond this is kind of beating a dead horse. I feel like. I mean, there's enough here that I can research them and still continue to learn about them for a long time.
Okay.
But yeah, so when
You don't know where you got this from, basically.
well, they're
Originally.
right. Yeah, they're found of course, in Egypt. They're found under the step pyramid. They're found in burials and tombs all throughout Egypt. But which specific tomb or burial, you're never going to get that from anything that you get on the antiquities market, unless you happen to know an archaeologist who was there on the dig. Usually, what happens is, well, these over the course of time, every ancient object would have been at some point, in someone's burial, and then looted by archaeology, and then usually gifted to some dignitary or noble or politician or whoever it might be, head of state, given as gifts. There were 40,000 of these objects, give or take, in the step pyramid of Dozier.
Oh, in one pyramid.
40,000.
40,000.
40,000 of them. A lot of them broken up into tiny little fragments, but the estimate was.
How'd you know that? You have pictures of it?
Yeah, there's pictures of it. Yeah, there's pictures of the inside of the step pyramid. There's some debate on that exact number, but I think it's a ballpark number that's probably about right based on what I know. And this is a hobby for me. I should say that this isn't my full-time job, but I try to share the information to the best of my ability and to the best of my knowledge. But But that was 1927 when Jean-Philippe Loyer, who was an archaeologist who went into the Step Pyramid and basically immediately found that huge stash of these objects. And many of them were alabaster. Probably the majority of them were alabaster, which is a softer stone. But among
You got
that,
some here?
but among that, I purposely stayed away from all alabaster because I think that the alabaster was a later. I think the alabaster is copying these. I think that these are the true older and much more interesting artifacts. But Jean-Philippe Loyer went into the Step Pyramid and immediately found that huge stash of these. But there was another archaeological team that was in there excavating for 20 years prior and supposedly didn't find any of these, didn't find anything. And so there's some speculation as to whether or not they were looting, whether or not they were pulling these out, and that's where, that's how these entered onto into private collections, into private hands, and why we don't know the exact, the exact sites or digs on a lot of these things. But the fact is that these exist out there. You can find them if you go online and try to look at them today, right now, on various sites. You're not going to find very many. There's maybe 2 that I'm aware of that are for sale right now. One is on eantiquities.com, and it's, in my opinion, dramatically overpriced. And so.
Otherwise, you'd buy it.
Otherwise, I would.
You said that was the last one.
Yeah. But they sell them, but they do come up for sale periodically on estate sales. And so, like some collector, a family member, head of the family will die. They'll pass it on to his kids. The kids will need to liquidate it to pay the taxes on the estate, and so they'll come up for auction on places like Christie's or Sotheby's or Bonhams or Placas, auction houses. Very, very credible, established auction houses that do their homework to verify that these are real to the best of their knowledge. They'll sell them. And so, those are kind of the ways that you can go about attempting to collect these. I feel like if they were manufactured in modern times and they were fake, that there would be a lot more of them.
Yes.
Absolutely. A lot more than 2 in the world
Yes.
right now that you can find. I was very fortunate last year to get on these early and to start collecting them before kind of the buzz about them kind of got big and got loud, because people are starting to understand now how incredible these objects are. Yeah, if you want to look at the measurement on some of these, we can see, for example, this one here, which was the first one that we picked up. If you look at the x-axis versus the y-axis, and this is difficult because I'm trying to keep it flat, but it can be a challenge. 112.13 millimeters, so this goes out to the 100th of a millimeter, and then you rotate it, you close this, you flip the axis, you start all over, and then you punch down on it. You're at 112.13 millimeters. So 112.13. So to the nearest 100th of a millimeter, this has the exact same dimensions on the x-axis and the y-axis of the width. And so that's not chopping out this thing with a chisel.
Absolutely.
That is turned on a very high precision machine of some sort. That's not in the archaeological record. We don't have a lathe prior to 1300 BC in the archaeological record in Egypt, and so and the lathe that we do have on some hieroglyph, some random hieroglyph from 1300, is not capable of producing a 100th of a millimeter deviation of perfect roundness. It's a hand tool, and that's similar. You see that perfection on many of these. This one here, if you look at the lip on the x and the y-axis, right here, the variance between the two is 0.4 microns.
Wow.
Yeah, a micron.
Micron is 1,000th of a millimeter.
Correct.
0.4?
0.4 ten thousandths of four ten thousandths of a millimeter.
That's crazy.
It's impossible. You know, you can't see it. So it's the size of a bacteria or a red blood cell. It's,
Yes,
it's small.
yes.
It's small. So it's very microscopic, the difference. And so, you know, the lip is in that 1 or 2 thousandths of an inch, and the width you can't measure on this because of the handles. But I think the mouth is different because there's a bit of potential damage here where they measured it. You can see it, you can feel it. It's kind of scratchy. But this measurement that they got to be 0.4 microns on this one it's the best measurement that I've seen on any of them.
This brings up a lot of questions, you know, because even if they, let's assume they, I mean, obviously it has to be lathe machine. Let's say the machine, you know, machined it using lathe from the outside, but what would they do for the inside?
Right.
This is
So they just go like this with a stick. Right. That's the question.
so they have to have a smaller, like stone here, and as they go inside, they'd have to have a bigger stone. How would they put the stone
Right.
through this?
It makes no
That
sense.
makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
Right? So if you put a stone tool attached to a stick, it has to go through it, right? But how do you clear this part?
Right.
Because the mid part is wider than the mouth, right? So it's like be impossible. That
Right.
makes no sense. I would say this is pretty hard to do even today.
Yes.
Like how would you do it today without, like, what do you do? Like use CNC lathe?
I think a 5-axis CNC mill probably is what you would try to cut that with, yeah. But how would you hollow it out? I'm not exactly sure. You can see cutting the outside, and then you'd have to turn it because you would be left with the material would still be between the handles.
Yeah.
You would still have material here, even if you lathed it. And so how would you come back and then turn it to cut off that material without even seeing it?
Yeah.
And the wall thickness on these is, you know, it's perfect from this side
Really?
to the other side.
Really?
The thickness is
It's the same?
It's as accurate as the rest of the measurements on it. Yeah.
I can see it's a real hole. And I'm just trying to think what would be the purpose of this hole. Like everything has a hole. Like what? They just like putting a string and putting it on the ceilings.
You know, yeah, I've heard some wild speculation.
Tell me.
Well, it's just, I mean, the most rational, normal thing that you could think of is that they take some kind of a animal skin and they stretch the animal skin out, and then they tie a string around the lip, because most of them do have the mouth and the lip and the neck on the inside, that you could tighten that off and create an airtight seal on
Yes.
something that you wanted to protect, you know. So I guess for me, you know, that's the most logical sounding thing that I've heard so far. But you know, the function of them, what were they used for? It's who knows? Who knows? It's I hate to even start to speculate with that.
But why would they create something like this? You know, why? I guess the question is, why would you create it? You know,
So perfect, you mean?
yeah, so perfectly. But why would you choose granite? You know, why would you choose like the hardest material and then start to machine it? Like it's got to be a reason to do it, right? Why would they do this? Again, how old is this?
That one I'd have to check, but it's right in that same time period. It's right around that 300 BC.
The ribbed jar.
Right.
This is really out of the world. It's like, but why would somebody try to make, like today, if you had time, would you make something like this? I'd be like, okay, let me just make a granite base, like to perfection. There must have been a reason, right?
Yeah.
What would that be? I mean, maybe it's because if they make it with wood, it deteriorates, right? It just like kind of disintegrates after some time. If they made it with gold, if they made it with iron or other, it gets rusted and gone. And if they make it with gold, people just sell them or they just
Can
melt it.
melt
Yeah.
Sure.
So if they made it, and this was the thing about ancient temples too, you know, all the temples built using wood or metal and all those things are gone. But the stones, nobody, you know, like what do you do? Because it just sits there like a rock. It is a rock, right?
Right.
So they probably did that for durability, right? So it's like, I'm gonna make this and nobody can do anything about it for like the next 5,000 years.
Right.
Precisely what we're doing today. We're looking at it because if they made a metal jar like this, people would have,
Yeah. Be melted down or
Yeah.
rusted or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you look at ancient art and what's for sale in terms of ancient art, what's available, these artifacts are some of the oldest, if not the oldest, artifacts that you can buy and
in
it's
the world.
in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't get older. I mean, you know, you might find arrowheads from
Yes,
10,000
yeah.
years ago. You might find like a
There's
bead,
flint
a couple of
arrowheads,
beads.
flint scraper, that's
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah,
But how do
beads.
you even know how old that is? You know. But painting and writing, it doesn't last more than 1,000 years. You know, it's going to be, it just deteriorates, it just decomposes. But stone lasts forever. So, you know, if you're going to want to create something that's going to last forever, you would choose a hard stone like granite, like diorite, like basalt. You know, a lot of these hard stones, quartz crystal,
Yeah.
and you would choose that medium to create
To
something.
make sure they just last forever,
Yeah.
huh?
And it's so durable. You know, I mean, so people think that well, this is easy. Michelangelo was carving the statue of David, but that's marble. You know, marble is
That's
a
easy,
very
yeah,
soft
soft
stone.
rock,
Yeah.
right.
Marble's like alabaster. It's like what the dynastic Egyptians were working with. I dropped this one.
You dropped it?
This is basalt. I dropped this one from about 4 feet the other
Okay.
day onto a solid wood floor. Nothing.
Oh,
Absolutely
really?
no damage. No,
Oh.
no damage. And you know, my heart was damaged, but this had no damage to it. You know, and it made like a popping, like a sound almost. It was very, very strange.
You got it broken, huh?
No, it.
Did you? I shouldn't ask you this, but did you break any?
No, I haven't broken any of them
Okay.
yet. No, don't jinx me.
I gotta be careful, man. I'm a clumsy guy.
Yeah,
I gotta be really careful.
Yeah, I've dropped two. So let's see. This one right here.
Wow.
This was
Fancy.
so that one was on the front seat of my car, and I slammed on the brakes, and it went boom straight into the footrest of my car.
Really?
No damage.
Nothing?
No damage.
What kind of material? This is so amazing. If it is really 5,000 years old, so
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
That's Brescia.
To hold
Yeah, it's a limestone and calcite.
limestone calcite on it.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, white limestone, pink calcite. It's a common medium that the ancients used. They used, on the softer side of the stones, they used this limestone calcite. They used limestone, which you see here. This limestone calcite, limestone, and then they used the harder stones. And it seems like they were getting really playful with the softer stones like that. Like
Okay.
that's about like marble or
Okay.
alabaster. Limestone and calcite's about a 3 on the most scale. So
Okay.
easier to work with, but still
Yeah.
extremely durable. You know, it's going to slam into a car footrest, and it's
Nothing is gonna happen, huh?
right.
That's good.
Right, for sure.
Like, what's the oldest vase that you have here? About the same?
Yeah, I think this one is extremely old. A lot of the basalt artifacts that you see are some of the first mediums that they began to play around with, and so that I believe is 4,000 BC.
4,000 BC. Are you saying this is 6,000 years old?
Correct. Yeah.
6,000 years?
Yeah.
I don't think we have any artifacts like this even in the museums. 6,000-year-old stuff. Maybe in Cairo. I haven't seen any. I can't recollect that's 6,000-year-old artifacts like this, machined to perfection. Inside, we can see turn marks.
Right.
In any museum in India, I don't think that's fantastic.
Yeah, that that one you see the tool marks on the inside of almost all of these. Most of the insides were not polished.
This is clearly turned, right? Is it
100%.
not? Yeah.
100%. And people say, oh, well, the potter's wheel, that predates the potter's wheel. And
6,000 years old.
Yeah.
There's nothing. When did the Egyptians come up with the potter's wheel? What, 2000 BC?
2800 or so BC
Okay.
is my understanding. Yeah, 2900 BC.
Okay.
But potter's wheel is just for pottery. It's it's for that. It's not
For
gonna-
mud or
it's not gonna
clay.
carve the salt.
Yes.
Right. That's another common argument. Oh, they just hammered down a wheel. Nah, it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah, you got that endoscopic thing, right? Can
Right.
you see the turn marks inside this? Because this is small already, right? This is
Yeah.
okay. So Matt's got this endoscopic camera. Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
There's like at the tip. There's not only a light, but there's also a camera, tiny little camera. So I'm going to show you inside. And you can see the turn marks, guys. This is definitely turned in a lathe machine. You know, you don't see hand polishing. You don't see any polishing, even after the stuff. That's really good. That's really so fancy to see this. Yeah, it's good.
So that one, I just confirmed on it. That one has a range of 4000 BC to 3250 BC.
Okay.
So this has a date range that they gave. So
Okay. And what is this one? Why is it looking like a rocket?
yeah, that one's pretty interesting. That one you'll probably want to use the inside camera as well.
Whoa, so it's upside down.
Yeah, yeah.
And inside, what do we find?
What we find on the inside is the remnants of the original core. So they drill a core to hollow out the inside, to drill a hole on the inside, and then they snap the core off. But on this one, the core didn't snap off at the very bottom. It snapped off with about a centimeter of
Really?
core left.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
There's a side cam. Ooh. Ooh, whoa.
Isn't that cool?
That's pretty crazy. Oh my god. That's amazing.
Yeah. And nobody's ever been inside of this thing to see it before.
Yeah, I bet, right?
Right.
Yeah, because the mouth is so small.
Right.
And you can't, if I look through it, nothing is visible. And those cameras so helpful.
Yeah.
It's like, so they're supposed to, they're supposed to drill all the way through and then snap the core off.
Right.
But because it's so small, they couldn't do it?
Correct.
Wow. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is fantastic. They did turn around it because it's almost like a cylinder, right?
Right.
But they didn't snap off the core.
Right. And they hollowed the walls, because that would have just been one solid drill hole, but then they widened the hole.
Yeah. How wide is this? Is the inside, right? Is it like what's the width of this hole?
Of the hole?
Yeah.
I'd have to check on the scan report. I can get you that number. Yeah, this one also is worth noting that this actually lights up white under black. It has fluorescence.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I was talking to Bob Greenier about this one and potential radioactivity involved on this one, or I don't know. It's just crazy speculation, but this one has red granite has been known to fluoresce, and I guess there's certain properties of it that allow it to turn white. But If you look at all the other ones, none of them turn white under a black light
Okay.
on the table at all. Zero. But this one,
Oh, wow.
this one turns white.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty interesting feature of this guy as well. And I'm still not exactly 100% sure why. But that's cool.
Yeah.
I did realize by looking at this black light again, if you could flip that, Ryan, this one has been repaired at some point in time, and I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can see the. Yeah. So, it kind of speaks to how old this thing is, and I mean, nobody's gonna. Why would you repair a modern?
Yeah, that's true. Why
Yeah.
would you repair a modern
Right.
thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yep, but most of them are fully formed and have never been broken before.
Okay. What about this one? Oh, you guys, that's finally that might be the real deal breaker. What is it? Gold?
Yeah.
The gold. How did they? Oh, wow. So they must have put glue underneath.
I am unsure. I'm unsure of the process. Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple
Because
of them
because how else would you do it? You got to put glue underneath. You don't think they melted it and just pasted on it? Is that what you think?
I have no idea.
Yeah, they would have put glue underneath, and the interesting part is they would have, if it was really ancient Egyptian stuff. What did Egyptians use? Bones and hides. Glue made from bones and hides, right? And then, or even plant-based glue. But that's organic. And if you get a trace of the glue, you can actually date this. That's the
Yeah.
that's the real deal, right? So you can actually date that organic material, because I would say, and that's what I would do today if I have to glue metal to a stone vase. I would just put glue on top of the vase and just attach it.
Right.
And you take this apart. I mean, I don't know what you can do, but if you find Gorilla Glue, that's
Yeah. Right. That would be a problem.
if you find traces of Gorilla Glue, man, that's
Right.
you call that guy.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Fine, right.
but yeah, that will be your that's a way to really find out how it could even be older.
Yeah.
Right? It can even be like 20,000 years old.
Right.
But if you get the traces from that glue, then you really find out how.
Well, yeah, I know that there has been speculation that the gold was added in either in modern times. I've heard that people who have gotten a hold of these have tried to add gold a couple of times in order to increase the value of them.
Oh, I see.
But
okay.
but that may or may not be true for each of the individual. It may or may not be true for any specific artifact.
Yeah.
There is gold on artifacts that exist within the Cairo Museum, for example, and so it looks very similar to that. So where you would have provenance that is indisputable, you've got an object that looks almost exactly, very similar to that, and it does have gold on it. So yeah, that would be a great test to do eventually.
Yeah.
On those, I would love to see it done with ones from a museum, but yeah, I'll probably get around to that at some point as well. And those are both extraordinarily precise.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's gold too, huh?
It is, yeah. That's what the certificate says. Again, I haven't tested it.
Yeah, that's really fancy. Wonder what they're.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the one that's in the. Is it the Cairo Museum? Ryan? Yeah. Yeah, and look at how perfectly round. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't get that with a chisel.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a chisel. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really just, and inside.
And
Did you ever see what like any traces of any material from inside? Is there a way to test that?
I'm just getting started on scanning them with a local resource that I know who lives in Naples, who has a scanning electron microscope. And Ben Van Kerklik from the Uncharted X channel came down and scanned a couple of fragments that he had. And
What kind of technique?
what's that?
Laser?
Scanning electron microscope. So
Okay.
they use like I think they're literally firing electrons into the walls of the fragments
Okay.
and looking at them at microscopic levels and seeing what appears. And he found titanium as
What?
he found there was a little tiny little piece of titanium that was embedded into one of the tool marks. But
Oh,
yeah.
I think they were using titanium tools.
But it was just one piece. It could have been somehow contaminated, in modern times, I guess. Maybe if someone went in there with some,
Yeah.
But the big finding from the initial scans was that there was no finding. Really, that there was no flint, there was no copper, there was nothing embedded that would have looked like an ancient Egyptian tool. They were very clean, and so the question is, well, did they wear off over time, and did we lose the micro particles of the tools that would have fraction? Yeah. So right now it's still more work needs to be done on that, but they found it, and I found it very interesting that they didn't have nearly as much remnants of tools that they thought that they would. Just a little piece of titanium, and the rest was basically clean.
What do you guys call this? The shoulders? The
Call them lug handles.
lug handles. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How symmetric are the handles? Like, is this really symmetric? Like, is this like diametrically opposite?
Every one of them is offset.
It's offset.
Yeah.
This one is offset?
Every one of them is offset.
Really?
Yep. And so the critics of the artifacts will say, oh, look, they didn't know what they were doing, but it's very consistent that they're all offset by a different number of degrees. And
Dude, you know what that means.
it was intentional.
But why?
Well, I think that they wanted them to be closer on one side than the other. They had a front and a back for whatever the functional purpose was. If it was hanging around your neck and you wanted it to not tip over, or but I'm not exactly sure. It would come down to the function, I think, to understand why.
Well, because they were using it as actual containers. Because just this is large enough. Or maybe you'll take the bigger, this one. I'm just trying to be careful.
Thank you.
Because if you make it diametrically opposite, right? So I imagine it's like offset like this on this side, right? So there are two, what Matt is basically saying is that both these handles are like towards me rather than perfectly at 180 degrees, right? So in this half, you have two handles, and on the other half, there's none, right? Because I would imagine these are actual containers used for pouring things. If you use an actual container, you want both the handles on one side because it's easier to pour. If it's diametrically opposite, that means it's not a real container. It's not a real vase. It's a decorative piece, right? So if you have a big flower vase on this table and you're not using it as a container, you can have them diametrically opposite, right? Because you're not actually using the handles for anything. But if you're going to use it 10 times a day, you want it offset, right? So the handles should be offset, right? Yeah, and that's what the potters would do too, because they should put the handles like towards you, two handles this side and none on the other side, right? Because you just that's the natural way of drinking or pouring.
Right.
Because it should be offset to this. This is what it actually shows. It means these were not decorative pieces. They were actual containers for convenience. But this will be now. this will raise a lot of questions, because if you put two handles on one side, it shouldn't be able to stand like this, because now in this half you put two extra handles, right? And there's none on that half. So it should tip over like this because of the weight, right? Because you've added two handles on this half and none on this side. So they have to increase the weight on the other half.
Right.
But now what they do, like they just made it thicker?
Right.
Did they make it thicker?
On the wall, on several of them they did actually. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, in order to keep it balanced.
No.
Yeah, so this is a good example of that, where the handles are just slightly offset to this direction, and so this wall
That's
is
thicker?
slightly thicker.
How much thicker?
It's just
Dude, you know what that means?
it's less than a millimeter.
You know what that means? That means they understood center of gravity 5,000 years ago. Right? Like 5,000 years ago, they knew, okay, so I'm going to make it thicker on this side with the handles, like make it heavier, and I'm going to make it thicker on this side, because otherwise it just
Would be
fall.
unbalanced, right.
And so they knew the center of gravity, and they had to, that's not clever, man. That's genius.
It is. Yeah, if you draw a line directly through the center, you'll find that if you take this handle and you have a line that goes directly through the center, you'll find that it comes out somewhere around here on this side.
Yes.
So you'll get half of this one will be on this side, and then maybe a third of this one will be on this side. And so you'll need that wall to be a little bit thinner on this side in order for it to bounce, in order for it to sit perfectly upright. Otherwise, it's going to be tilted in one direction.
Yes, and this will create problems if you pour something, because just start tipping over, right? Because
and it may have been the way that they achieved the balance in them to begin with. You know, I mean, it may, if you had the two handles directly opposite each other, then you're never really going to find that balance point with a rounded bottom.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it makes sense that would for sure be intentional in my mind as well. This is another interesting example where it has the two holes, but they're both right next to each other. And so it's like, well, the two holes are important.
That doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
What is your idea of things like this? Like, what do you think about the two holes?
Yeah, it's obviously important that they had the two holes on it, but they put them on the exact same side on that one, and so the question is, for what purpose? What did they? Because you couldn't really tie a string on that one. If you tied a string underneath the bull noses, then it would just slip right off the bottom. Right?
Yes.
So
this is not for like putting a leather lid and tying it in.
No.
Maybe.
No.
Yeah.
So what could that be for?
And what about the little bumps?
Yeah.
Just for holding?
Well, that would have existed on all of these. It would have been, all of those little bumps would have been existed on all of these. That's when you turn it on the lathe, you're left with not only the handles, but the handles would have gone all the way around, and then you cut them off. So on that one, they just cut between, as opposed to taking all of them out.
Did you ever put it in water?
I put several of them in water.
Did you put this? This is the lamp.
Yeah. Yep.
This is a floating lamp.
Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, this would be a weird question. You have a bucket.
We do.
You want to put this in water, man, and see if this one will float?
I have done that one, but it doesn't, and it's got these holes in it.
Oh, okay.
It has some damage to it right there.
You don't think this one floats?
That one. That
you
one
got
does
some
not.
floating ones?
I do, yeah. I do. Several of these back here float.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm like a
I haven't
kid in a
tested.
candy store. Man.
Yeah.
It's like it's fancy.
Yeah. Most of them
pick that
sink.
one?
Most of them, absolutely, yeah.
Dude, you know what this is? This one floats.
That one does. So three of these float. It's these two, and I believe that one. Yeah. So both of these would.
And I don't think this one floats. This is really floating.
Yeah, that one does. For
You
sure.
checked it?
Yeah. I
You have
checked that.
footage of this?
I do. Yeah. 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 I'd be happy to share it with you. Oh, there you go. Ryan. Yeah.
Oh wow. Ooh, did you ever fill it with something and then see if it floats?
Oh, it does not if you fill it. No, it'll sink if there's water in it.
You guys should try this, man. You know, see, this is what I think it is because, oh, wow. That's not a coincidence that it floats.
Yeah.
They were designed to float. They're designed to float. You should try things like this because see, I could say well, when I saw that one or whatever I saw, oh, yeah, that one.
Mm-hmm.
My immediate reaction is to think that that's a lamb.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, because in India there's a festival called Kartika Purnima. There's a famous festival called Kartika Purnima. On that day, all the women will go to like a lake or a pond, or I fully imagine, Egyptians in Nile River taking something like this and lighting. It's a lamp. They pour some oil in it, and then they have a wick and they light it up, and they would just leave it in the water, and the lamp floats away. This is a very popular thing. It's not only found in India. It's also found in China. People just use those floating lamps, and that's what it just.
Thank you for being here. I'm done.
Reminds me.
Thank you, True Faith and
That's what
Lurkers.
I would be
Appreciate
doing.
it. Appreciate True Faith.
Yeah. Yeah, floating lamps. Yeah. This is a popular festival everywhere. Yeah, I'm sure it started maybe in India, but even in China, you see the whole
Post flex.
like the river, covered with these.
Right.
Egyptians probably did it in Nile River. This is just my guess.
Yeah. This one floats as well. I'll trade you if you want.
Wow. Yeah.
Lost a little mass, but
I
we're
would
doing
say,
okay for the winter.
This is the.
We're doing okay.
This is a typical thing, man. Like
We're
fill it with
maintaining.
a little bit of
We're a
oil,
little
put a wick,
under goal, but it's
But-
fine.
like maybe 5 wicks around, light them up, leave it in the water, and just watch it float away. I will bet you this is not a. Oh wow! It floats fully. Like it's not even.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. Most of the plates mostly do, and all of the plates typically do. That one is super interesting because it's very thin.
Okay, we're gonna
Yeah, it
read somebody.
floats. Yeah. Ooh.
Ryan, if you hit the light for a second, I'll shine a flashlight on this
No
one.
way.
Yeah, you can see this will go right.
Thank you for being here.
You can see right through the walls on the side there.
No.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
What?
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about diorite, which is one of the hardest stones on the planet, and they've cut it so thin that it's